So here I've got what could probably only be pronounced as the CGSULIT, the manufacturer name, their SC880 scan tool. And what I've seen from their website of products, this is pretty much their top-of-the-line scan tool that they sell. And for a scan tool, I have to say from my testing that it provides very comprehensive data on vehicle information from what I've seen of it so far. Besides being very comprehensive on information about what's in a vehicle, it does have some various built-in service functions that it can at least do, like ABS bleeding, transmission relearning, engine throttle relearning, supplemental airbag system stuff, and a couple of other different various service functions, aside again from acting as a scan tool, giving you a lot of information about the various data in computer modules in the vehicles, besides your typical onboard diagnostic data. So, pull the little sleeve off the case here. And it comes in a nice little hard blow molded case there, which is always convenient because it keeps your tool nice and protected. Snaps. And inside we have our SC880 tool itself here. Let's see, my display is popping off a little bit. That's just the cover. Press it back on there, no big deal. And it's actually nice that it has these little Velcro straps inside the case holding the tools down, because nothing is worse when you're a mechanic or anything like that. You got your tools, but they just slip in there, and then the moment you open your case up, you know, your tools and everything falls out of it. They've actually got these nice and secured in here with actual dedicated Velcro straps. So aside from the tool, we have our actual connection cables just below that. And to the side is our little instruction manual, also behind some Velcro. And then we got another dedicated spot here for something else which is not being used. So this case is obviously used across other products from CGSULIT. But it provides a nice little handy area if you want to keep some other items in here with the scan tool. So let's look at what cables we have. So in here is both our mini USB cable, which connects it to our computer for performing live updates, which are lifetime, by the way. So the lifetime of the tool, you get updates from the manufacturer there for all the various vehicles that it can connect to. So there's our mini USB. And here's our pretty standard 15, 16 pin D cable for the scan tool to our OBD2 connector here. So if something ever goes wrong with this cable, like it's broken or damaged or something like that, you can easily buy a replacement cable instead of replacing the whole scan tool that have these hardwired to them. So that's a nice little convenience. So let's actually take the tool out of the case. Put the case aside for the time being. And take a look at there. And one of the things I noticed right off the bat when I first looked at this tool was how large the display is on this. I got a couple of other scan tools that I could compare this with, but I will say for a 4.3 inch or larger display that this thing has, this actually provides quite a bit of real estate on the data that you're looking at when you have it plugged in. Got our typical 4-directional keypad with questions, power on, off, various function keys that will of course display what those correspond to when the tool is on, plus our back and confirmation keys. There is no built-in battery on this, so we don't have any kind of battery door or anything on the back here. On the side is where we find a little micro SD card. And I won't pull it out, but I will say that this one came with a 32 gigabyte micro SD card, and only half of that card is in use with all the information it has for the vehicles, because this already has the latest updates downloaded onto it, which I will say the updates did take quite a bit of time to download and upload to this scan tool. That took at least an hour, if not two, to download all the vehicle data and information onto this micro SD card from their website. So that's something to keep in mind, but once you do that, you don't really have to do it again until maybe a couple of months after, when there's new information available. On the bottom is where we have our mini USB connection, and there's also an optional, although it's not on this, again probably on a future product or a different product, an RJ45 Ethernet connection, which you see is blocked off there. But we do have the mini USB connection, again for connecting up to a computer and updating its software. And as terms of specs go, this works on 8 to 18 volt DC system. So if you have a vehicle that's running on a 24 volt DC system, this scan tool is not going to work out for you. So you will need to find a tool that will work from probably an 8 to 30 volt DC range if you're working on a vehicle that uses a 24 volt DC system. So let's connect the tool up to a little USB power bank here, just to power the tool up, and look at some of the menu options. So bring my cable out. Hopefully this little USB power bank is sufficient to operate this. I'll turn this to the side here and plug in. So we have the tool booting up, and now we are in our main display. So let me just leave it on the table here and zoom in to what we've got. So we've got a couple of things. We have a history section, because again I've already used this on at least 2 vehicles so far, so it's at least stored the history on the memory card in there. We have an auto VIN function for vehicles that support that, so it will automatically be able to pull the VIN from the vehicle that it's attached to, and then from that be able to get all the various vehicle data about its engine type, the body style, things of that nature. And then we have our classic OBD2 functions, our diagnostic functions, which of course gets into more detail, especially when looking at various computer modules and all the equipment connected to them and what data they are providing, which again is probably one of the big uses of this tool. We also have maintenance functions, and the maintenance functions are the various service functions that I brought up before. So like for instance, we have various things for if we replace the airbag electronic control unit, we can perform services for that. We also have stuff for doing anti-lock braking services, constantly varying transmissions or CVT services, diesel particulate filter services, various clutch activations, again gear relearning, headlamp control settings, odometer stuff. You know, being able to prime the fuel pump. If you replace a electronic fuel pump in a vehicle, you can have it primed with the service setting here. Again, SAS stuff, seat stuff, basically stuff for turbos, even the tire pressure monitoring system, throttle position systems, transmission relearning. So again, various service functions can be performed with this tool, but again, most of its functionality is going to come from the diagnostic side here. And we can go in now, we can choose which various kinds we have, like American cars, Asian cars, China cars, or European cars. So we can go into the American things, and we have options like Chrysler, Dodge, Ford, General Motors, Jeep, and Tesla. So we can go into Tesla, for example. We can do Smart VIN, or we can just do the manual selection. Right now it only has the diagnostic stuff for Model S and Model X vehicles, so if you got a Model 3 or Model Y, you might be out of luck at the moment if you're trying to use this to diagnose anything on those vehicles. But from my understanding, it might be possible for the Model S and Model X information to be compatible with the Model 3 and Model Y if you have any of those cars looking at this scan tool. So again, we could do a quick scan, so it will be able to scan throughout the CAN bus system of the vehicle and be able to determine what modules there are and what various devices are connected to those modules to be able to get any kind of information off of those. Or we can just go to control modules and manually select what control module we look at without actually scanning. Now, if your vehicle does not have the control module that you're trying to look at, most likely you will get an error message that it does not have communication or something similar to that. So we'll get out of the diagnostic section. And as I say, that's probably where the best part of this tool is the diagnostics testing on there. Being able to see all the data that it gives. But again, we do have our classic OBD2 information that we can use for picking out various trouble codes, especially if you have something like a check engine light. It gives us the various protocols that we can choose from if you know what protocol your vehicle is using. Most of the time, your vehicle is probably going to use the CAN standard fast mode on there. But if it doesn't support that and you're doing like an auto VIN or a quick scan, it will fall back to these other ones on its own. So we pretty much have the menu layout here. And what it does is, you can see we have OBD2 functions for the function keys already assigned on here, but we can go into the settings menu and assign these to any function that we want if we want to pull up a function quickly using one of the function keys. So we pretty much looked at the tool on the bench and what it can potentially do. So now let's look at this in practice and connect this to an actual vehicle. So here we are in my 2015 Nissan Leaf. And I've already got the scan tool hooked up to the OBD port under the dash there, and I've put it on my nice little steering wheel table here so I don't have to hold it while filming as much. And one reason I'm using the Leaf here is because, one, it's an all-electric vehicle, and two, I found that most scan tools can't seem to get data from this vehicle, but this SC880 I found is. And again, as I mentioned, it's very comprehensive on the data that it is able to get. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and power up the vehicle so that we have everything available for it to check. So our vehicle is powered up now, and what I'll do is I'll go into the history menu because it already has the vehicle's VIN code and everything on there, so I don't have to enter it again. And of course I'll blur this out so you can't see this part of it. So it goes in there. We'll go into Quick Scan. And what Quick Scan is now doing is it's going through, and you might even be able to hear the little relay clicking inside the SC880 there. And what it is doing is it's scanning the CAN bus of the Leaf here and determining what computer modules are installed and what components are attached to those various modules. And you can even see that some of these modules it's showing some faults in. Again, this is one of the nice things about this tool with this diagnostic data that it can provide, because your regular OBD2 data, it's just the onboard diagnostics. This is much more comprehensive, looking at the individual modules in the vehicle and whatever errors are stored in those and what data the various components are reporting to those modules. Now, depending on your vehicle, this may be very quick or it might take some time. There's a Mercedes diesel next to me that I've shown a video before on with a different scan tool, and that thing, I think this thing detected like 52 different computer modules in, and that took a good at least maybe 15 minutes to completely go through the entire scan. So this is still presently detecting some modules in here, as you can see from the scanning and the various relays inside the tool here clicking on and off as it's communicating with the CAN bus. So it's detected 15 modules that it can pull data from. So let's go down to, well, actually let's go ahead and look at something like the ABS module that's reporting faults. It says there's 2 faults there. Now I already know what they are. This vehicle has had its 12-volt battery dip down in the cold temperatures, and it's most likely going to tell me that those are voltage mismatch or low voltage codes. So let's see what codes it has to say. And it says battery voltage abnormal EVHVE system. So basically what that's just telling me is exactly what I suspected. It sensed that the battery voltage was low, and it's primarily the 12-volt battery just going low from sitting. And we can even look at the control unit information for the ABS. So from that I can see the actual part number of that control module and what the system name is for it if I need that information. So if I'm trying to figure out, looking online, the number for what that control unit is, I can see it right from the scan tool here. And as you saw, it does give me the option to reset the codes as well. And the airbag, I'm sure that's also got a low voltage code. Yeah, ignition voltage low. So yeah, below what it's just suspecting. Again, I could pull the ECU information off of that as well. So let's look at something that I can manipulate in the car here that we can see the data coming back on. So let's look at the HVAC module. So let's look at live data. Let's look at all signals. So now I've got a live readout of all the information that the HVAC module is receiving from various sensors and the head unit, which is right there on the display there. So right now I am seeing that my ambient temperature sensor is saying that it's 59 degrees Fahrenheit. The in-vehicle temperature is 64. So I can see 59 on the dash there. That's our ambient temperature. I'm sitting in the car here and it says that it's 64 in here. So, and then we have the internal temperature sensor, which is the temperature sensor inside the actual HVAC system. So I'm trying to scroll down here. It's still doing some information pulling, so that's why there's a little bit of a delay on the arrow key. Or can I just go to the next page? And while we're here, you can see we got various things that we can pause the current data that's being pinged. We can graph what we're looking at. And we can even save that information to the history section on the card there. So as you see, it was taking a little while to refresh there because, you know, it's pinging the CAN system trying to get the data. So from here, we can see conditions on our fan and compressor. So right now, the HVAC system is currently turned off. So there is no request for the fan to run. And of course, since the fan is off, there's no reason for the AC compressor to be running because that's also set to off. But we can see the fan duty cycle set to 0. Again, it's turned off. If I increase or decrease the fan speed, that will go up or down. I can also see vehicle speed, which of course is 0 because we're not going anywhere. If the compressor is running, I can see how many revolutions per minute it's running. So let's manipulate the system a little bit right now. So I'm going to turn it on there. So the fan has just been turned on. So when it refreshes, we should see the fan duty and fan required signal come on. Again, it takes a little while to refresh. And you heard it click. So our fan required signal, it says on now. And our fan duty is set to 4. And that's the lowest setting. So let me turn it up to max setting. And you see now the fan duty is ramping up. So we now have it on the maximum setting, and the max setting there is 12. Bring it back down a little bit. And as I ramp it back down to low, it ramps it back down to 4. So we are seeing that data from the HVAC head unit here of me manipulating the fan speed to what the fan duty cycle is that the scan tool is reporting from the HVAC module. So let's look at something a little different here. Go down to compressor RPM. So right now I have the air conditioning compressor turned off. It's not actively being enabled. I'm going to press graph F2 so we can look at some graphing. So now we are graphing the compressor RPM now. Because the compressor is not running, it's showing it hovering around 0. I'm now going to hit the AC switch over here. And now you can see that it's now graphing the AC compressor. Turn the volume down, or I should say temperature down to 60. And now you see that the compressor ramped up to a high speed and then kind of settled down there and is staying pretty static. Because the fan is at low, the compressor is cycling on and off, so we can see on our graph there the compressor peaking when it first turns on, and then it ramps down as it slows down building pressure, and it's turned it back off again, as you see the drop there. You hear the compressor come back on, and you can see it being reflected again in the graph. And get turned back off. So we can see the fluctuations in the RPM as the compressor turns on and off, while it's also building up pressure when it cycles. So we can back out of this graph, and now we can go back and see the numerical number of the compressor. So let me go ahead and turn that off. And also, you'll see that the compressor request signal will also change with that. See, it just flipped to on when we see the RPM change there. So I'm going to turn the AC back off. And of course, those go back to 0. So let's look at another page of information on our HVAC system. Wait for it to refresh. And so now again we get some more information about the compressor, like our compressor involt power in watts. So let me go ahead and turn it back on, just so we can see the amount of wattage that our compressor is drawing, how much input voltage from the high voltage pack is going to it, and what the compressor's temperature is, in case we want to monitor how hot that compressor is getting. And we can also see how much maximum power the compressor is permitted to use, which is 8,000 watts. So, turn that back off. Now we can look at something a little different, like the PTC heater. Because being an electric vehicle, this has electric heating because there is no engine to heat up any coolant. So it has to use electric heating. So let's see. We can see some data for this, so let me turn on the electric heat now. Turn this up to 90. So now you can see the wattage of our PTC heater going up there, because it's increasing the duty cycle, so more and more power is being delivered to that. And as the wattage increases, you can also see the temperature of our PTC sensor on the heater there is going up, showing that the little electric grid heater is heating up inside the HVAC system. See. It's getting a little warm. And then you see it's ramping the power to the heater down because now it's approaching the temperature limit on there so that it doesn't overheat, keeping it on too long. HVAC module. So we can see all that various data just from our HVAC system alone on the fan settings, how the compressor is working, how the electric grid heater is operating. So it's got some very useful data, and of course we can graph that and even graph multiple graphs of various inputs that we're seeing there and be able to contrast and compare that data to each other. So we can look at some other various modules here just out of curiosity. And every time we go back out to this menu, it automatically rechecks the module. Say if we were going to clear any error codes or something like that to verify that a code hasn't returned, because it will go back and display that for us. So let's look at the body control module. And of course we got all kinds of various things here in the body control we can look at. We can look at stuff on the door locks, the rear defogger, the buzzer, like if I have a door open or my headlights are still on when I turn the ignition off, the internal lamps, headlamp settings, wiper settings, flasher settings, the combined switches, so it's like the combination switches up here on the steering wheel for headlamps, turn signals, wipers, get all that information. Trunk settings, anti-theft alarm stuff, signal buffer, blah blah blah. So let's take a look at buzzer. Live data from the buzzer, all signals. So tail lamp switch. So if I turn my lights to the first setting, tail lamp switch comes on because I've turned it to the tail light setting. So it's basically just the running lights on the front, tail lights on the back. Turn it one more. You can see that. And if I turn the tail lights off, that goes back to off. Settings on there. So I just locked the door, so you see that the lock switch went to on and then back to off because I commanded the lock switch function. So you can see that reflected there. You can see anything on that door. Did you see the door switch for the driver? Came on when I opened it, and of course the buzzer comes on with it. When I close it, the buzzer goes off, and the door switch closes, so it sets that back to off. So I think you're getting the general idea of what this scan tool is capable of. Again, I could spend more and more looking at different functions of this and whatnot, but this video of course will get very, very long if I keep going in depth looking at various modules and showing the functions, all the graphing and everything with this. But again, you get the general idea of what this tool is capable of. So with that, let's go back to the bench and finish up this video. So we got to look at the SC880 here on the bench, and we got to test it in a practical application, hooking it up to, of all things, an electric vehicle and looking at information from its various computer modules. And from my experience also using this on another car, a Mercedes diesel, I have to say it's very useful for all the comprehensive data it can provide, and even then, through my testing so far, there's still a lot more stuff I could learn about the various cars that I connected to just from what this thing is giving. So to me, it's actually a pretty good deal for a scan tool that provides that level of information on here. So if you are also interested in the CGSULIT SC880, there will be a link down in the description there where you can get it on Amazon. But there's an additional bonus too, that there is a 10% discount code also in the description that you can use, and that will take 10% off your purchase price of this tool from Amazon. So with that, I leave it here, the CGSULIT SC880 scan tool.